So here's some mistakes that all students make. It's gonna be some study mistakes, some non-studying mistakes, but students, so many of them make these mistakes. Okay, so the first one, I'm gonna tell you, this is how I used to go to many of my classes throughout university, a ton of my classes. So I would like walk into the lecture hall, especially in first week, I would walk into the lecture hall, I would scan the room, and I would look for an empty row. And I would go sit in that empty row like a fucking loner, right? So the first mistake, maybe you already know it, is not making friends with anyone in your class, being a fucking loner, a lone wolf. This is what I used to do. I used to go to the classes and just sit in an empty row. I would like not even interact with anyone in my classes. If it was a tutorial, you know, a class where you're sitting closer to people, I would make as minimal interaction with people as possible. And as soon as the class was over, I would sprint out the door and run home. And I'd be like lying in bed at night like, oh my God, why don't I have any friends in my class, man? Like I've got no one who I can talk to about the assignments. So bro, first thing I can tell you is make friends in your class. That's the mistake that most students make. Like, okay, let me know if you relate to this. This is cringe as hell when I look back to it. I used to like sit in those empty lecture hall rows, right? I would like be sitting there before the lecture begins. And some students would like come in and they're gonna come sit next to me, right? It's clear they're walking in and they're gonna come sit next to me. Instead of looking over at them and saying, hi, how you doing? Like a normal human being, right? And talking to them because they're coming to sit next to me, I would pretend I didn't even see them and I would be like facing the front of the room.
Like damn, like, you know, the lecturer is setting up the lecture. This is so interesting, bro. Like, oh, damn, this is so cool.
You know, and pretend that I don't even notice these guys coming to sit next to me because I'm like so intrigued by the lecturer setting up the lecture. And, you know, I'd be like adjusting my jawline to look good next to these guys, but I wouldn't speak to them like they were human beings. So talk to the people in your class like they're human beings. First of all, here's why. I'll give you a bonus tip in a second, another way to make friends in your class. But here's why you need to make friends in your class. You guys can collaborate on the assignments. That's the first thing. You guys can help each other study. The amount of value that you guys can actually give to each other when you're studying is insane. Like sometimes you'll be in a group chat with the people in your class and some motherfucker like one day after the assignment was released, he'll just be like,
hey bro, here's all the answers to the assignments.
And he'll just leak the assignment answers onto the group chat. So like, if you make friends with people in your class, so much value, it'll actually help you so much that you don't even realize. You guys can help each other, study together, you know, collaborate on the assignments together. That's the first reason why you need to make friends in your class. The second one is obvious, to socialize, to be a normal human being, to actually make friends. You never know, some of those guys in your class that you make friends with might become your best friends. Like my best friend right now is some guy that I met in one of my classes like 2 years ago. So you never know where these relationships will go with these people in your class. That's another obvious one. Like university is such an easy time to make friends. Like literally 99% of conversations that happen in university are literally boring as hell. Like it's like, oh bro, did you do the homework yesterday? Oh no, I didn't do the homework yesterday, bro, but I might do it tonight. Oh, okay, yeah, have you done question 1? Nah, bro, like I said, I haven't done the homework yet. You know, most conversations in uni are like so boring, so basic. So just do it. Just talk to the people in your class like they're human beings. And a bonus tip on how to make friends in your classes. Just go online, go onto Reddit, go onto Facebook, and look for a group chat with the people in that class. Look for a group chat and just give value to the group. And eventually you'll connect with some of the people in the group and you might end up meeting them in person. So the actionable step for this video for you, make a friend in each of your classes this week. You know, talk to the person next to you, try to find a group chat, make some friends. So that's the first, because many students, they've got this mindset where they're like, oh, I'm gonna be a lone wolf, you know, I'm not gonna talk to anyone in my class, you know, I'm gonna survive on my own. Bro, that's lame. Make friends in your class, you know, socialize, you know, they'll help you with the assignments and you'll make some friends. So that's the first mistake that students make. The second one is they study shallowly and they don't do deep work when they study. Now you're gonna think, okay bro, this is boring as hell, video's over, thanks for giving me the fun friendship tips, I'm out of here. But no, you need to stay because most students are guilty of this. Most students study, honestly, like they are drunk. Most students, their focus is so trash. They're pulling their focus away from their work so often, their focus is so trash that they may as well have had 5 shots of vodka before they studied. That's how trash their focus is. They may as well be high as shit, okay? That's the ability most students have. So the skill that you need to develop is the ability to do deep work. Deep work is basically this mode of focus where you enter this flow state and your output is maximum, your focus is maximum. When you're so deeply working that your eyes don't even leave the screen, your eyes don't even leave your book, and you have 0 thoughts in your mind and you are just studying at full capacity, you will study less, you will get more done, and according to psychology, you are at your happiest because you have no thoughts that are like pulling you everywhere. Like I want you to imagine like Rafael Nadal or some famous tennis player or some famous athlete playing a sport, do you think he's on the tennis court, you know, about to hit the ball and he's like, okay guys, I'm about to do a backhand, 45 degrees, 30 kilometers per hour? Do you think he's thinking these thoughts in his mind? Definitely not. When a professional tennis player, or any tennis player really, is on the court playing tennis, there are zero thoughts in his mind. He is one with his tennis racket. He is just fully immersed into the activity that he's doing. This is called a flow state. And a flow state, when you're studying, when you're doing work, is called deep work. And your ability to do deep work is a skill. It sounds boring as hell because you're like, oh man, I don't want to focus for 2 hours. You know, I want to be able to go on Instagram. I want to be able to talk to my friends. But it is making you do so much less work. You are getting so much less done. Most students, they're dumb as hell. Most students sit in the library for like 12 hours and just do shallow work all day, when they could have got that done in like 2 hours of deep work. So this is the second mistake students make. They work so shallowly. So the tip I can give you is cultivate your ability to do deep work, because deep work is literally a skill. Your ability to enter a flow state is a skill. I've made some videos on this, like how I study 2 hours a day, but I'll definitely make more videos on this because I think focus, your ability to focus and do work, is the most important skill of this century. If you can do deep focused work, you're ahead of 90% of people, because most people, their focus is trash. So if you can just cultivate the ability to do deep work, you will destroy your competition. You'd get better grades than everyone else at school in much less time. So this is the second mistake students make. They do such shallow work. Okay, here's the third mistake students make. This is a bit more related to studying. I like to call it outsourcing learning to future you. So when students are in class or they're like doing their homework or something, they do this kind of study. They take notes, they learn, they listen in a way that requires zero brain cells. Let me give you an example. They'll write notes, right? Let's say the lecturer is giving a lecture and he's like explaining a lecture slide. They will write notes on that lecture slide by literally copying and pasting the lecture slide. Or they'll be reading the textbook and they'll just like highlight every line, or they'll copy and paste every line onto their paper. This kind of studying takes zero brain cells and isn't even studying. It's essentially just copying and pasting. You may as well get a computer to copy and paste it for you. Because here's the thing, when you copy and paste that lecture slide onto your notes, when you highlight that textbook, the actual learning doesn't take place until you revisit your notes like a week later. That's why I call it outsourcing learning to future you. Because essentially, the reason you do it is because you want to make class as easy as possible. You don't want to do any thinking, you don't want to do any learning. So it's super easy to just like copy the lecture slides, or super easy to just highlight the textbook, because it makes you feel busy, but it takes zero work. Because that's the thing, students are obsessed with feeling busy, but not actually getting efficient work done. Like many students will spend like hours printing out all the lecture notes because it makes them feel busy, but they're not actually getting any work done. They're not actually, advancing their grades, studying, getting some serious stuff done. So that's the third mistake students make. They outsource their learning to future them. So when you take notes, when you, read the textbook, that's when you should be learning. That's when you do the actual learning, rather than copying and pasting and learning in like a week. So learn at the time. Learn when you're in the lecture. And this brings me on to the fourth point, actually. This point might actually contradict the first point I made. It might seem like it does, and many students are going to disagree with this, but this is a bit of a weird tip, okay? Going to class may actually be a waste of time. Hear me out. So many students, what they'll do is they'll go to class for the sake of feeling busy. Like I said in the last point, they go to class to feel busy, but they're not actually learning anything in class. They're just sitting there and they're just looking at the lecturer, and they're not actually learning anything. The learning takes place when they go home and they study the textbook, or when they rewatch the lecture. That's the first reason why going to class may be a waste of time for you. The second reason, which is why I personally don't go to most of my classes, is because, first of all, the classes are recorded. So if they're recorded, you can learn it much better because you can pause the lectures, you can play them faster speeds. So I think watching a lecture recording is actually a way better way of learning than to actually go to the actual class. So that's the second reason why I think going to class may be a waste of time. And the other way, this might seem a bit weird, but the lecture may not actually be the best way to learn the material. In so many of my subjects, I actually learnt the material entirely by either reading the textbook, looking onto YouTube and watching, YouTubers explain the concepts, or simply reading the lecture notes. So actually going to the class, listening to the lectures, may not actually be the best way to learn the material. Now this tip is going to be very specific, a bit controversial, because it's going to apply differently for different people. For example, there were some classes where I went to every single lecture because I loved the lecturer. Or sometimes you might want to go to class to make some friends. So one thing you could do is like go to class for the first like 2 or 3 weeks, find some people in your subject, see how you like the lecturer, see if you want to go to that class, see if there's other ways to learn the material, and then decide if you want to keep going to that class. Because many students, they're stuck in this mindset where they're like, okay, I have to go to class or I'm going to fail or I'm not going to do well. And another reason I'll mention why students like going to class is because they have zero discipline. They know that if they don't go to class, they're not going to study. They're going to be like 10 weeks behind, 12 weeks behind. If that's you, fair enough, go to class. But it would be better for you to cultivate your ability to be disciplined, cultivate your ability to study on your own at home. Because you probably have dreams of being like an entrepreneur, starting your own business, right? Working for yourself, right? How can you do that if you need a schedule to tell you when to study? If you can't study on your own and create your own study schedule and learn on your own, how do you expect to start your own business and make money working for yourself? So think of it as cultivating your ability to be disciplined and to learn on your own if you think that the class is a waste of time to go to. Now, this is a bit of a weird tip. Think carefully before you skip your classes. Don't use this as an excuse and say like, oh yeah, Penrose says I can skip all my classes and go party all day, go fucking day drink or some shit. Don't use this as an excuse to do that. But just ask yourself, is actually going to this class actually productive? Can I make better use of this class time? Or should I learn the material in some other way? So bro, I know I like insulted you a bunch in this video and said you were doing everything wrong. University is a fun time. It can be tough to make friends. It can be tough to know what you're doing because they don't teach you how to learn in university. They don't teach you how to make friends. So hopefully this channel, hopefully I'm helping you a bit, giving you some value. And yeah, bro, hope you do well in your classes. Let me know in the comments how some of these tips go if you're doing well. See you later.